I want to congratulate you on your film. I
Oh,
definitely,
thank you.
I was going over the trailer. I'm pretty excited about, finally getting the opportunity to watch the
I'm
film.
very excited to watch it, with an audience and on the big screen. Every day, just been kind of sitting at this desk, emailing as many people as I can, getting. So
More
it's a very
content.
new process for me. So just coordinating with people and emailing everyone I've ever met.
How many people will actually be on the carpet with you?
Myself, and the other two lead actors, as well as our producers, and then working actors that are friends of ours that are coming out to support and pose for the photos and all that. It'll be my first real red carpet experience. I'm excited.
Expectations, Dancing with Films Festival so far.
First time really taking a movie through the whole festival process, so I'm kind of learning as I go. Expectations wise, I think the biggest thing is just hoping to meet a lot of kind of similar filmmakers, and you know, kind of just like having like a class of filmmakers to meet and interact with. It's really been probably since film school when I've been like a collective of like-minded individuals and meeting all these new artists and stuff. So I think that's kind of the biggest thing I'm hoping for is to build that network of other young filmmakers.
Ultimately, I kind of, reference trying to gain a better understanding from, the directors and the writing point of view. Is there any specific idea or concept that, I should be able to recognize from the film? Who specifically does this film, speak to?
I think one thing I talked about a lot with kind of my team as we were making it was, despite it being it's set during the pandemic,
Yeah.
it's definitely a millennial point of view, millennial story, but really trying to make it feel like kind of like a timeless kind of I almost equate it more to these like Jane Austen love stories where it's this very classic dynamic of this like yearning and this sort of unrequited love and this sort of thing. So I think it'll really speak to anyone that's ever cared about someone and had it not work out the way they wanted. We're really to make the film's intention from the beginning was capturing that feeling of it almost working out with someone.
Yeah.
Like you get so close and then it just kind of slips through your fingers. Which is where kind of the title came from, is this idea of there's these people in your life that were so important to you at one point, and now they're just sort of this footnote of your past, where they're a very specific, important chapter, but they ultimately didn't become the main narrative of your life, and how kind of painful but beautiful that can also be.
Sound interesting. I think to hear that, kind of really depth into the relationship between you as the featured character in some of the clips that I've seen, and then kind of recognizing some of the other characters. It's a romance, right? Or is it more comedy based? Or
I think I've always pitched it as sort of my take on a rom com. So I think anyone that goes in expecting that won't be disappointed.
yeah,
But it certainly has kind of it's a different spin on it. It's not like a traditional, rounded indie slice of life feeling version, but sort of a trajectory of again, like kind of that feeling of meeting someone where it starts off light and it's very fun, and then as the feelings get deeper and as kind of the emotional complication of the relationship gets deeper, the movie kind of takes on a more serious tone.
what are we projected to interact with? Directorial debut.
Good question. I think the movie will certainly make anyone feel seen. Like I said, anyone that's kind of had that. I think we've all had people that we've lost, whether it is romantic or it is just someone that you were best friends with for a while, and then life kind of makes you feel connected to that person again, or make you feel seen. Or just sort of one thing that's been interesting in the people that have seen it is I've gotten the comment a lot that they never thought they'd be nostalgic for lockdown. I think there's been enough time since that happened now that when you watch the movie, it kind of, I think it brings up emotions for people they didn't realize they had. But I think we've all kind of repressed that time a lot.
Yeah.
And I think watching the movie kind of makes you realize really how you felt during that period. And painful as it was for a lot of folks, and as scary as it was, it also, I think, provided a lot of time for introspection, and people reconnected with family and friends, and it kind of made your world smaller in a nice way.
Hey, I definitely agree. So, what role does the film's storytelling play in the moment we are in right now, post pandemic? Do the relationships still kind of forward this fascination that because of the pandemic, life has evolved to kind of be more romantic?
I mean, I think definitely it's textured by that. I think one thing, though, again, that I think we talked a lot about in the making of it was I wanted when people to watch this, them not to be able to tell when it was shot. where I wanted it to almost feel like someone might have made this movie 15 years from now, and they were just making a period piece about the same way if you made a period piece now about the 80s, it would still feel, it would just kind of, the 80s would just texture the movie, but it's not really about it, you know?
Yeah.
So I think the pandemic certainly informs a lot of the characters, and it creates situations that wouldn't exist normally, like the need for them to, you know, pass all this time together. But the movie itself, I think, could exist at any time, and it's just the pandemic creates kind of a nice backdrop. The movie feels timeless in a way that I'm happy with. That was always like very intentional.
Compromising a lot of what did take place during the pandemic. How did you go about selecting the title of the film?
Yeah, that was actually a really long roundabout way. In the scripting phase, it was always called an untitled pandemic romance, was just always what I had called it on the page.
Yeah.
And I kept putting it off and putting it off. Everyone was like, well, what's the title? And for a long time, I thought I might just leave it as Untitled Pandemic Romance and just make that the title.
Yeah.
And then I switched it to be just A Pandemic Romance. And I was pretty sure that was going to be the title. And kind of like at the very end of the editing process, my producer sent me a long email, and he was like, listen, man, like, if you really feel good at it, he's like, this is my last pitch to change the title.
Yeah.
If you really want to die on the hill, I'll support you. And he made this impassioned plea. And his point was just sort of, not wanting to necessarily tie the movie to the pandemic right in the title, because I think it might create a preconceived idea in people's minds. And then also, as much as the film is romantic and there's, love story elements, it's not, I think, a traditional romance story. It's a little bit of like a different thing.
Yeah.
So I said, all right, well, let me sit with the movie, and I'll watch it again. And if a different title comes to mind, I'll throw some ideas at the wall. So I sat down and watched through the movie, and there's this one scene towards the beginning where my character and Sherry's character are kind of sitting on the couch talking.
Yeah.
And she has a line where she says, with everything going on, this whole thing made me realize if the world ended tomorrow, I wouldn't even be a footnote. And my character says, well, I think that depends on who's writing the book. And I kind of paused it, and I listened back to it, and I realized those two lines back to back kind of tell the whole story of the movie. Is like this feeling of two characters that they want to be important. They want to be important. They want to feel needed by someone, and then the other character feeling like, and their realization and kind of journey through the movie is realizing that what makes you feel that is, the people who care about you. It's not about how famous you are or how much clout you have. It's about who in your life loves you, and that's what makes you feel like you're important.
No, I agree.
It was a scene that we wrote at it was not in the original script. It was towards the end of production, and I just felt like there needed to be a moment between the characters between two scenes. So the last day of production, I wrote this little back and forth and it was the last thing we shot, the principal photography, and it ended up becoming the title of the movie from the scene.
Personally, as a writer myself, finding tidbits or a footnote that kind of, accent and mentality to, revise and then structure is really strong. It's really dependable. I think from speaking to you, I definitely am very interested in how the film's going to turn out as far as, opening up the idea to, reaching mass feed to connect to many people. And I know that before the year end, you're probably going to come across many people who have seen your film, who've, heard of the festival that you've been a part of, and, kind of really intertwined, this story. At least some of the clips that I've seen, the direction and some of the camera angles are really, tops, considering, some of the other films that I've, seen so far. So, like I mentioned, I'm still trying to really find this niche of, welcoming what I should expect, and finding in that need to this relationship is something that where ultimately for myself, romance, rom-coms, things that carry this humor and love of that nature is probably more perfected from people who are able to tell a story. Before I let you go, what other advice do you have for any newly film maker being a part of this festival?
I think the conventional advice is always, don't wait for permission, just go make stuff. I think that's good advice. I think the thing I always tell people, though, is don't make it until the script is ready. And I think that's overlooked a lot, where I feel like I've just seen a lot of people, who are so eager to make something that they kind of put the cart ahead of the horse, where at an indie level, there's so little time, there's so little money, and everything needs to really be at well-oiled machine that if your script isn't in like, you know, tip-top shape, if you don't feel like you know it backwards and forwards and there's no other, you know, screws left to tighten, don't wait until you really feel like the script is there. And that's hard to do because you know, making the movie is the most fun part. Writing it is often one of the hardest parts. But I just always encourage people to just like make sure your script is tight because it'll make everything so much easier. It'll be easier to find actors. It'll be easier to, you know, get through your days of production. And then when problems arise, if your script is already kind of a completed Rubik's cube, it's a lot easier to make those little adjustments than if you're still solving the cube as you're shooting, you know?
Well, no, I mean, you know, personally, like I said, while going into production, once you initiate, you know, production, you know, that lens is rolling, you know, that craft into, you know, development, it's already sparked the imagination. So, you know, with good talent, you know, things start to flow. And how did you go about selecting the cast, or how did you come across specific people to fill these roles?
Yeah. So, I mean, I wrote Will for myself. Just, you know, I've been an actor since I was a kid. And then the whole script really started, it was kind of born out of Sherry and I's friendship.
Yeah.
You know, we did a play together, and so kind of wrote the story for her. You know, we were chatting a lot during early days of lockdown.
So is this actually reality based, or is it just more script? Can you call it scripted reality?
I think there's certainly I think it would be dishonest to say there's not a lot that's, you know, taken from her and I's friendship.
Yeah.
But the actual plot itself is definitely scripted. You know, it's who these people are is definitely scripted. And it's taken a lot from, you know, I think it's been an interesting thing playing the lead character. As the writer, it's like I see more of myself in Aparna than I do in Will.
Yeah.
So it's really, to me, the two main characters are kind of myself talking to each other, but the chemistry of the leads is Sherry and I's dynamic, I think.
Okay.
And then Vishal was just kind of looking for actors to play Mickey. She recommended him, and he was great.
After watching the trailer, I definitely kind of felt really inspired based off of, you know, some of the still, you know, as a photographer myself, you know, instantly initiating some of these visuals are very, you know, reward. I mean, I think the span to see the title and recognize it is, you know, it holds a lot of weight toward, you know, what I should expect. And, you know, I definitely wish you guys best of luck. You know, like I mentioned, I think you guys have a really great film, you know, and ultimately I think it's a really great product. You know, I think technically, you know, sky's the limit. I definitely wish you guys the best of luck.
Ruby! Woo!